All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to this explainer, where we're about to embark on a truly mind-bending journey. Today, we're exploring a state of existence, or actually, scratch that, a state of non-existence that occurred before the universe even sparked into being. We're going to take ancient philosophy, place it right next to modern physics, and completely deconstruct the concept of absolute nothingness.
You know, paleontologists and geologists estimate that our Earth was born roughly 4.5 billion years ago. But I want you to really think about this for a second. Where was the Earth before that? Seriously, where were all the atoms that make up the towering mountains, the vast oceans, and even our own physical bodies residing before existence officially began? To answer that, we have to look backwards, to a time way before time.
Section 1. The State of Wuji.
So, to even attempt to answer the impossible question of what came before the universe, ancient thinkers proposed a very specific, fascinating state of being. It's the literal state before the universe. Inside Wuji, there is no inside, and there is no outside. There's no large or small, absolutely no edges or boundaries. It contains no time, no space, no material, and no spirit. It's described as being simultaneously clear and completely chaotic. It is shapeless and visionary. Now I know, trying to wrap your head around a state that lacks literally every fundamental building block of our reality is tough, but stick with me here, because understanding this definition is the key to unlocking everything else.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is the paradox at its core. When we usually think of nothing, what we might call common sense nothing, we picture an empty room, right? Or an empty box, just a literal lack of objects. But Wuji nothing is an entirely different beast. Wuji doesn't mean it contains zero things. Instead, it is the nothing that possesses absolutely everything. To say it has something is wrong because it has no tangible form at all. But to say it has nothing is also wrong, because every single thing that eventually became our universe was born directly from it. Basically, having nothing means having everything.
Section 2. The Diamond Sutra Paradox.
To grasp a concept this vast, ancient texts often had to rely on heavy, deliberate contradiction. Just listen to this riddle for a second. The Buddhism is no Buddhism. It sounds completely counterintuitive, doesn't it? The Diamond Sutra is incredibly famous for being profound and super difficult to understand precisely because it uses these intentional contradictions. When you are trying to capture a state of absolute nothingness that somehow contains everything, normal everyday language just completely breaks down.
Or consider this one. Tathagata says the world is not the world, so it is called the world. Grasping these strange, paradoxical phrases is actually the secret to unlocking this whole idea. If we can fully comprehend why these texts use contradiction, why the solemn is not solemn, why the laws are lawless, we can actually start to understand the very origin of the universe. It's essentially a massive mental exercise in breaking our traditional reliance on strict definitions.
Section 3. Space and the Golden Symbol.
Okay, so how do we apply this giant philosophical paradox to actual physical reality? Let's deconstruct the first pillar of our universe, space. To imagine space within the state of Wuji, there's this brilliant literary metaphor from the mythical novel Journey to the West. In the story, the Monkey King gets trapped inside a golden symbol by a demon king. Naturally, the Monkey King tries to escape. He uses magic to grow thousands of feet tall, trying to burst right out of it. But magically, the golden symbol grows right along with him. So he tries the exact opposite. He shrinks himself way down to the size of a tiny mustard seed, but the golden symbol shrinks right down with him. The container perfectly adapts to whatever is inside it.
And this brilliantly illustrates a massive, game-changing shift in how we understand physics today. Traditional science used to view space kind of like a static cardboard box. If you put an apple in a box, you have matter in space. If you take the apple out, the box, the space, is still perfectly there. But Einstein's general theory of relativity completely blew that out of the water, and it aligns beautifully with that Wuji symbol metaphor we just talked about. According to Einstein, space is absolutely not a static box. Space is determined entirely by the distribution of matter. The more matter that transforms from energy, the larger the space swells. If matter shrinks, space shrinks. And crucially, if there is absolutely zero matter, just like in the state of Wuji, there is zero space. Space just simply vanishes.
Moving on to Section 4. Time requires movement.
So, we've tackled space, but how exactly does time function inside the state of Wuji? Well, the absolutely foundational rule is this. Time is generated by the movement of objects. Without physical motion,
Time absolutely does not exist. They are completely and permanently linked. Think about a 40-year-old guy. Why do we say he's experienced 40 years of time? It isn't just a random number hanging on a calendar. We measure his time through biological motion. From the exact moment he's born, the cells in his body are rapidly splitting, moving, dividing, and eventually dying. It's this literal, physical, cellular movement that we actually interpret as aging. If those cells somehow stopped splitting and moving altogether, the aging process would halt completely. Biologically speaking, he would never reach 40.
There's an incredibly practical, everyday analogy for this too. Meat in a fridge. If you leave fresh meat out in hot weather, the cell movement and bacterial activity are going crazy, so the meat rots in a matter of days. Time is moving very quickly for that meat. But if you pop that same meat into a refrigerator, the cold temperatures drastically slow down the cellular movement. And because the movement slows down, the time of the meat is literally lengthened. It lasts for months. Now, let's take it one step further. If you could somehow halt all cellular movement entirely, say freeze it at absolute zero, time for that specific object doesn't just hit pause, it disappears entirely.
Section 5. The origin of everything.
Okay, let's tie all of these threads, Wuji, space, time, and modern physics, together into one big picture. If a man is never born, he has no time. If the Earth is never born, it has zero time. And therefore, if the universe itself is never born, if it exists in that pre-birth state of Wuji, where there is absolutely no matter to create space and absolutely no movement to generate time, then there simply is no time. That is the true physics of Wuji. A timeless, spaceless origin that somehow contains the raw potential for absolutely everything.
And what makes all of this so incredibly fascinating is how it echoes the absolute cutting edge of science today. The core principle of quantum mechanics is uncertainty. And why is there uncertainty? Because at the most fundamental, microscopic levels of our reality, time does not lapse evenly like a ticking clock on a wall. Time changes based on motion and matter. When time itself is uneven and constantly fluctuating, obtaining total, perfect certainty becomes physically impossible. This ancient, seemingly mystical philosophical concept of motion-based, uneven time perfectly maps onto the foundation of modern quantum physics. How amazing is that?
So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on. If everything we just explored together holds true, if space relies entirely on matter and time relies entirely on movement, and neither of them lapses evenly across the universe, is our everyday human perception of certainty just one big illusion? Are we simply blind to the magnificent chaos of Wuji that is still woven into the fabric of everything around us? Definitely think about that the next time you look up at the night sky. Thanks so much for diving into the source material with me on this explainer. Until next time, keep questioning everything.